She was alone, drowning in debt, and facing a world that refused to help her. Every door she knocked on slammed shut, until a shadow appeared in the room. A man whose presence could change everything. Silently, without a word. This is the story of the single mother who would discover the true meaning of protection and power. Welcome to Alma Shadows. Please like, share and subscribe. The fluorescent lights hummed above me like angry insects trapped in plastic coffins. I sat in the third row of the county assistant's office, my 6-year-old daughter Maya pressed against my side. Her small hand gripping mine so tightly my fingers went numb. We had been waiting for 3 hours. The number on our crumpled ticket said 247. The red digital display on the wall still showed 219. My stomach cramped with hunger. Maya hadn't eaten since yesterday's free school lunch. I had given her my last granola bar this morning, watching her eat it in 3 careful bites, trying to make it last. The woman at the counter, Mrs. Patterson, had looked at me with those dead eyes when I explained our situation. "The system says you already received benefits this month," she said, not even glancing at the stack of eviction notices I pushed across the counter. "But there's been a mistake," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I never received anything. My account shows 0 deposits. Then you need to file an appeal. It takes 6 to 8 weeks. She dismissed me with a wave of her hand like I was a fly buzzing too close to her coffee. Next. I tried to explain about Maya's asthma medication, about the landlord changing the locks tomorrow, about my disabled mother who depended on me. Mrs. Patterson's expression never changed. She raised her voice so everyone in the waiting room could hear. "Ma'am, I've told you 3 times. You need to leave the counter. You're holding up the line. If you don't move, I'll call security." Heat rushed to my face. 40 people stared at me, some with pity, mostly with irritation that I was making them wait longer. I picked up my papers with shaking hands, folders spilling onto the floor. Maya helped me gather them, her small fingers careful with each document, and we returned to our plastic chairs to wait for nothing. That was when I noticed him. He sat in the back corner, perfectly still. A man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. As like winter storms. He didn't fidget with his phone or check his watch. He simply observed. His presence creating an invisible pressure in the room that made people unconsciously shift away from him. I tried not to stare at the man in the corner, but something about him pulled at my attention like gravity. He didn't belong here among the peeling paint and broken dreams. His suit was perfectly tailored, his posture military straight, and when he breathed, the air itself seemed to acknowledge his presence. Maya tugged my sleeve. "Mama, why is that man looking at you?" I glanced up, caught his gaze for a split second, then looked away quickly. "He's not, baby. He's just waiting like everyone else." But she was right. I could feel his eyes on me like physical weight. Not threatening, not judging. Observing. Taking mental notes. Filing information away for purposes I couldn't begin to guess. The office door opened, and Mrs. Patterson called out another number. Not ours. Never ours. A pregnant woman struggled to her feet, one hand supporting her swollen belly, the other clutching a toddler. She made her way to the counter while the rest of us sank deeper into our plastic chairs. "Mama," Maya whispered. "My chest hurts." Panic sliced through me. I dug through my purse, found her inhaler, shook it, and heard nothing. Me. The prescription refill was waiting at the pharmacy. $37 I didn't have. I pressed the inhaler to her lips anyway, hoping for miracle droplets, some medication still clinging to the plastic walls. She breathed in, held it, and exhaled slowly. "Better," she lied, her voice tight. I pulled her closer, my mind racing through impossible mathematics. If I didn't pay the electric bill, they'd shut it off in 3 days. If I didn't buy the medication, Maya would end up in the emergency room again. If I didn't find $200 by tomorrow morning, we'd be sleeping in my car. If the car didn't get repossessed first. The man in the corner shifted slightly. Just a small movement, adjusting his position, but it drew every eye in the room. People recognized predators instinctively. They knew power when it breathed the same air. He said nothing, did nothing, but fear rippled outward from him like perfume. The clock on the wall ticked toward 5 o'clock. The office closed at 5. We had been here since 2. Mrs. Patterson processed 3 more cases, each one taking 15 minutes of typing and questions and photocopied documents. Simple math said we wouldn't make it. A man in the second row stood up, crumpling his number in his fist. "This is ridiculous. I've been here since noon." He stormed toward the exit, muttering curses that made Maya press closer to my side. Mrs. Patterson watched him leave with satisfaction. One less problem to deal with. She called the next number. Still not ours. Still dozens away. I felt something break inside me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet cracking sound like ice giving way under pressure. I had played by the rules my entire life. Worked 3 jobs before Maya was born. I took night classes to finish my degree. Never asked for help until circumstances stripped away every other option. And now I sat in this waiting room, watching time run out while my daughter struggled to breathe. "Mama," Maya whispered. "Are we in trouble?" "No, baby. We're okay." Another lie. We were so far from okay that I couldn't see it anymore, even in my imagination. Mrs. Patterson stood up, gathered her purse, and hung a plastic sign on the counter. "This window is closed. Please take a new number tomorrow." It was 4:47. 13 minutes early. The room erupted in protests. People who had waited hours, who had taken time off work they couldn't afford to lose, who had arranged childcare and skipped meals and rode 3 buses to get here, all suddenly standing and shouting. Mrs. Patterson ignored them, walking toward the back office without a glance. I stayed in my seat. What was the point? Tomorrow will be the same. The system wasn't designed to help people like me. It was designed to wear us down until we stopped asking. That was when the man in the corner moved. Not much. Just a slight adjustment of his weight. A subtle shift that somehow commanded more attention than all the shouting. He remained seated, but every person in that room turned to look at him. Even Mrs. Patterson paused, her hand on the door handle. Time seemed to slow down as he rose to his feet. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just a smooth, inevitable motion like a mountain deciding to become taller. He was perhaps 6'2", lean and controlled, every movement deliberate and economical. The shouting stopped. The protests died in their throats. People who had been standing sat back down without thinking about it. Mrs. Patterson froze completely, her face draining of color like someone had pulled a plug. He didn't walk toward her. Didn't approach the counter. Didn't say a word. He simply stood there, hands at his sides, expression neutral, and the entire room transformed. The fluorescent lights seemed dimmer. The air felt thicker. Everyone forgot how to breathe properly. Mrs. Patterson's hand trembled on the door handle. The office is closed for the day. You'll need to come back tomorrow." Her voice cracked on the last word. He still didn't speak. Just looked at her with those winter storm eyes, and I watched her entire body language change. Her shoulders hunched. Her chin dropped. She became smaller without moving. Then he turned his head slightly, his gaze sweeping across the room until it landed on me and Maya. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Not of my face but of something else. Something deeper. He looked back at Mrs. Patterson, still silent, still standing. And somehow, in that silence and stillness, he communicated more than an hour of shouting could have achieved. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. "Actually, I can help one more person before closing. Just one." Her eyes scanned the room desperately, looking anywhere except at the man who stood. "Number 247. My heart stopped. That was us. Maya's hand squeezed mine. "Number 247. Mrs. Patterson repeated, her voice higher now, almost pleading. I stood slowly, gathering our papers, holding Maya's hand. Every person in that room watched us walk to the counter. The man in the corner watched too, and I felt the weight of his attention like sunlight through a magnifying glass. I didn't understand what had just happened. I didn't understand why he had stood up. I only knew that somehow, impossibly, the rules had changed. The office smelled of bleach and desperation. I had never noticed how strong the scent was until the chaos had ended. Maya clutched my hand, her small fingers trembling as we approached the counter. Mrs. Patterson fumbled with the papers. "Please, your documents," she stammered. Her eyes darted toward the corner of the room, where the man had once stood. He was gone. Just gone. Like a shadow evaporated in sunlight. I handed over our forms, still unsure how we had been given this chance. "Thank you," I said quietly, but my voice sounded hollow. Then it happened. The soft, almost imperceptible click of shoes on tile. I looked up. He was back. Minjun Park. Calm, composed, every movement precise. No one else in the office noticed. No one else could have. But I felt it immediately. He leaned casually against the doorway, one hand in his pocket, watching. Not judging. Not threatening. Observing. "You're her," he said, and my stomach twisted. His voice was low, smooth, measured, and yet it carried authority that didn't need volume. The one who didn't give up. I swallowed. I don't understand. Minjun's gaze shifted slightly, and in that slight motion, he included Maya. "I understand enough. The girl." His eyes softened for a fraction of a second before returning to their storm-gray intensity. "She should not have to wait like this. Not for anything." Before I could respond, a younger man entered behind him. Slightly shorter, with the same sharp features and piercing gaze, but a hint of nervous energy clinging to him. "Uncle," he said. His voice wavered between respect and relief. "I didn't expect to find you here." Minjun's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted subtly. A single nod acknowledged him. "This is Sung-ho," he said, gesturing toward the young man. "He's involved now." Sung-ho stepped forward, offering a small, tentative smile. "I heard you've been having a rough day," he said. His eyes fell on Maya, and the tension in his shoulders softened. "But it seems she's in good hands now." I looked between them, bewildered. These two men, strangers in appearance, seemed to command the room with a single glance. My words caught in my throat. I don't know how to thank you." Minjun shook his head ever so slightly. "You don't need to." His eyes met mine, unwavering. "The world sometimes needs to be reminded that some rules can bend. Some choices matter more than procedures." Maya tugged at my sleeve. "Mama, who are they?" "Friends," I said softly, though it was only partially true. Minjun Park and Sung-ho were more than friends. They were forces of nature disguised as ordinary men. Their presence changed the air, changed outcomes, changed possibilities. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat again, breaking the spell. Your application. Everything seems in order now. You'll receive the assistance by next week." Her voice lacked its previous confidence, replaced by uncertainty that mirrored the weight in the room. I nodded, holding Maya closer. Relief poured through me, sharp and unexpected. But even as I smiled at her, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had shifted in a way I didn't yet understand. That the two men standing quietly in the corner had changed everything. Minjun Park turned toward the door, Sung-ho following, and in a brief glance back, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the beginning of a story I had no choice but to follow. And for the first time in months, I dared to imagine a future where we didn't just survive. We could thrive. The city felt different that night. Lights blurred against the drizzle, streets reflecting neon like fractured glass. I kept Maya close, the rhythm of her small steps grounding me, but my mind kept returning to them. Minjun Park and Sung-ho. We didn't know where to go next. Every apartment we considered had walls too thin, doors too weak, and the shadow of eviction still hung over us. Yet, when we stepped onto the street, the world felt quieter, safer. Then, without warning, a sleek black sedan slid to a stop at the curb. Its tinted windows obscured the interior, but the door opened, and Min-jun stepped out. His coat hung like armor, and the streetlights seemed to bow around him. "Get in," he said simply. No explanations, no hesitation. He hesitated. We can't." Sung-ho's hand rested briefly on the door, calm but insistent. "You can. Trust me." His voice held an authority that didn't ask for consent. It commanded it. Maya tugged at my sleeve. "Mama, it's okay." I swallowed, taking a deep breath, and lifted her into the back seat. They followed, and the car glided into the night like a shadow hunting its own. Inside, the warmth was immediate, as if the vehicle itself had absorbed the winter chill. Min-jun's eyes met mine briefly in the rearview mirror. "No one will touch you tonight. Not anyone." Sung-ho handed me a small envelope. "For rent, utilities, anything else you might need. Consider it temporary security." I clutched it, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "Then don't," Min-jun said, voice low and commanding. "Actions matter more than words." We drove in silence, but the city outside shifted under Min-jun's presence. Every neon sign, every damp alley, every flicker of distant headlights seemed to bow subtly, acknowledging his influence. Finally, the car stopped in front of a modest apartment building, its exterior unremarkable. Yet the moment we stepped out, a different energy filled the air. Min-jun's gaze swept the surroundings with precision. "Safe enough," he said. "For now." Sung-ho helped Maya onto her feet. "You'll have food waiting. And a warm bed. No one will knock on this door unless you invite them." I nodded, gripping Maya's hand. The words I wanted to say, "Thank you, I don't know how to repay you," caught in my throat. There was something unspoken between us. Something that didn't need explanation. Min-jun turned to leave, and I felt compelled to ask the question that had haunted me since the office. Why? Why help us? His gaze lingered, storm-gray eyes unreadable. Then, a single sentence, precise and final. "Because some rules are meant to protect the innocent, even if breaking them changes everything." And just like that, they were gone, slipping into the night, leaving only a sense of security that felt almost impossible, yet undeniably real. I watched them disappear, holding Maya close. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I believed someone had our back. Not just anyone. The right ones. The envelope in my hand felt heavier than its contents. It was more than money. It was a signal. Promise. A reminder that sometimes power wasn't for fear. It could be for protection. And for the first time I allowed myself to hope. The next morning, sunlight cut through the thin curtains of our new apartment, but the warmth didn't reach my heart. Maya was humming softly, unpacking her few belongings, blissfully unaware of the danger that still lingered outside. I stared at the envelope from Min-jun Park. Enough to cover rent for months, utilities, even a small emergency fund. But it wasn't just money. It was a shield, a line drawn between us and the world. I didn't know how long it would hold. A knock on the door shattered the quiet. My heart leapt into my throat. Froze. Maya stopped, her eyes wide. "Don't panic," I whispered. "I'll check." Peeking through the peephole, I saw a courier, a plain-faced young man, holding a package and a small card. No one else. Carefully I opened the door. The package contained food, basic supplies, and a note written in precise, angular Korean handwriting. "Do not venture out alone. Keep your doors locked. If anyone asks, say nothing. Min-jun." Chill ran through me. Even without seeing him, Min-jun's presence was everywhere. Protective. Controlling. I could almost feel his eyes watching, always assessing, always guarding. Hours passed. I tried to settle Maya into her routine. School, play, homework, but tension simmered beneath every movement. The apartment felt safe, yet the city outside was unpredictable, dangerous. Then, a whisper of trouble reached me. At the grocery store, a man had asked about our apartment. Random. Coincidence. I didn't know, but fear clenched my chest. That evening, Sung-ho arrived, calm as ever. "Did anyone ask questions today?" he asked, not accusing, just stating. "Yes, but it seemed innocent," I said, though my voice trembled. He nodded. "Innocent people don't ask about others' homes. We'll handle it." I wanted to protest, to assert independence, but something in his gaze made me silent. That quiet authority, the same as Min-jun's, was more than intimidation. It was protection. Sung-ho stayed long enough to teach Maya a few games, making her laugh, then left as quietly as he had come. I watched the door close behind him, wondering how someone so powerful could move through life almost unseen, leaving only safety in his wake. Late at night, I stared at the city from our window. The streets sparkled under neon lights, but shadows clung to every corner. I didn't know who was coming, what dangers were waiting, but I knew one thing. Min-jun, Park and Sung-ho were no ordinary allies. And the closer we got to their world, the more I understood that survival came with rules. Rules I wasn't sure I could follow yet couldn't ignore. Because in this city, where power whispered through the streets like a living thing, protection came at a price. And soon I would discover what that price really was. The following days passed with an uneasy rhythm. Maya's laughter filled our apartment during the day. But at night, every creak in the floorboards or distant siren reminded me we were still vulnerable. Min-jun's influence extended invisibly everywhere. Even ordinary errands felt orchestrated. When I went out, I felt the watchful presence of Sung-ho trailing at a distance, blending into the crowd. I hated needing protection, but each day reminded me how powerless I truly was. Then the first real warning came. I was returning from the market, bags heavy with groceries, when a black sedan slowed beside me. The windows were tinted, but I could see movement inside. Heart hammering, I clutched Maya's hand tighter. "Stay calm," I whispered. A man leaned out briefly, a casual smile on his face. "Are you new here?" I froze, unsure how to respond. Then the car sped off before I could answer. My stomach knotted. This wasn't random. Someone was probing. Back at the apartment, I called Min-jun's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a terse message, trying to keep my voice steady. "Someone's asking questions. I don't know who, but it's deliberate." Minutes later, the soft knock of Sung-ho at the door answered the question before I could speak. He stepped in, eyes scanning the room as though the danger itself had a scent. "They found us," he said simply. "But you did nothing wrong. You didn't talk, you didn't respond. That's important. Min-jun will handle the rest." I wanted to protest, to argue that I could handle it myself, but the look in his eyes silenced me. Authority didn't need words. Control didn't need explanation. Sung-ho placed a hand gently on Maya's shoulder. "She's safe here. But listen carefully. Never let anyone know you live here. If someone knocks unexpectedly, you say nothing. Understood?" "Yes," I whispered, the word barely audible. That night, as Maya slept peacefully, I sat by the window, watching the city below. Min-jun's name echoed in my mind. The man who could silence threats with a single glance. Who could move mountains without leaving footprints. And yet, he had chosen to protect us. For reasons I didn't yet understand. A message pinged on my phone. Min-jun's name flashed on the screen. "Trust is earned. Do not act alone. Your safety is a shared responsibility." I exhaled slowly. Shared responsibility. The weight of that phrase pressed against me. I had survived so far because I followed the rules. But what if the next challenge didn't allow mistakes? Outside, the city lights shimmered, indifferent to fear, to danger, to survival. Inside, I realized the rules of this world were clear. Obedience and caution were the only shields against chaos. And I had to learn them quickly. Because the threats were no longer whispers or shadows. They were moving closer, and soon there would be no place to hide. The next morning, I awoke to the hum of the city, but the tension in the air hadn't lifted. Maya was already at the window, pressing her small hands against the glass, tracing the streets below with curious eyes. I forced a smile, but inside my nerves were taut. Sung-ho arrived mid-morning, calm and precise, as if he had rehearsed every movement for years. Min-jun wants you to stay inside today. No errands, no visitors, nothing that could draw attention, he instructed, his gaze lingering on me with unspoken concern. I nodded, understanding the gravity behind the words. Outside, the city carried on, indifferent, while our world had shrunk to the size of this apartment. By noon, Min-jun called. His voice, even through the phone, carried weight. I've traced the car that approached you. They're professionals, and they've been hired to intimidate. But intimidation isn't enough. If they think you're scared, the next step could be worse. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone tightly. What can I do? You continue to do nothing, he replied sharply. Your presence alone is enough. They cannot touch you while we are aware. Let me handle this. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Every time the doorbell rang or the wind rattled the windows, my heart leapt. Maya sensed it too. She clutched my side each time a shadow crossed the room. I whispered reassurances I didn't fully believe, trying to mask the fear that clung to my chest. Then, late afternoon, Sung-ho returned with a small package. From Min-jun, he said, setting it gently on the table. Inside was a set of documents, a map, and a simple note. They will come in waves. Be prepared. Trust only the people I have designated. Do not speak to strangers, do not leave anything visible, and do not underestimate them. The map showed locations throughout the city, places where threats might appear, escape routes and safe points. It was meticulous, strategic, and terrifying. I realized then how different this world was from anything I had known. Survival wasn't about luck or courage alone. It was about knowledge, timing, and obedience to the rules of someone far more powerful than me. Night fell, and the city lights flickered against the darkness. From the apartment window, I could see movement, shadows stretching and retreating, cars slowing and then speeding up. I felt their presence, even if I couldn't identify them. Sung-ho stayed close, vigilant, like a shadow guarding another shadow. They test first. Once they know your limits, they act. Min-jun will remove them, but we need patience. You must remain calm. I repeated the word in my mind like a mantra. My entire life had been about taking action, about solving problems immediately. Here the lesson was the opposite. Survival required waiting, enduring, and trusting a man whose motives I barely understood. As I watched Maya drift into sleep, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. We were still in danger, but for the first time I felt less alone. Min-jun's reach was vast, Sung-ho's vigilance unyielding, and for the first time, I understood that power could also be protection. Outside, the night remained restless. Inside, I braced for what I knew was coming. The confrontation that would test every rule, every instinct, and every ounce of courage I had left. Because in Min-jun's world, peace was temporary, and danger never truly slept. The city had never felt so alive or so dangerous. Even the familiar sounds of traffic and distant sirens carried an edge I couldn't ignore. By mid-morning, Sung-ho was pacing near the window, eyes sharp, every movement deliberate. They're close, he murmured, more to himself than to me. The first wave will arrive soon. Stay inside. Do not answer the door. Do not react unless I instruct you. I nodded, gripping Maya's small hand. Her innocent face betrayed none of the tension that gripped me, but I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down like lead. One wrong move could put both of us in danger. The first knock came just before noon. Light, cautious, almost polite. Froze. Maya clung to me, sensing my hesitation. Sung-ho motioned sharply, and I did not respond. The knocking stopped after a moment, but the feeling of being watched did not. Min-jun called shortly afterward. His voice was calm, almost cold. They are testing. They need to know your reactions. Do nothing. I will remove them. Trust me. Hours passed like a slow march. Every sound, The distant hum of motorcycles, the slam of a car door, the rustle of leaves, felt like a potential threat. I clutched the documents Min-jun had left, memorizing the safe points, escape routes, and instructions, hoping I would remember them when it mattered most. Late in the afternoon, the second wave arrived. This time it was bolder. A sleek black car parked suspiciously close, its windows tinted, engine idling. I could see shadows moving inside, assessing, calculating. My heart pounded. Sung-ho remained calm. "Wait," he instructed. "Do not provoke them. Let Min-jun act." Minutes felt like hours. Then the car started, moved erratically, and suddenly vanished down the street. Silence returned, but the tension lingered, thick as fog. That evening, Min-jun arrived in person. The sight of him, impeccably dressed and emanating a quiet authority, brought a strange sense of relief. He surveyed the apartment, his gaze sharp and calculating, before finally turning to me. "They will not stop," he said, voice steady. "But neither will I. You and your daughter will be safe, as long as you follow the rules." He handed me a small envelope. Inside were photographs, names, and detailed notes about those who had tried to intimidate me. "Knowledge is power," he said simply. "And power protects." I realized then how different this life was from anything I had ever known. Min-jun's influence was invisible but absolute. In this world, threats were neutralized not by confrontation, but by understanding, anticipation, and control. As night fell, I sat with Maya, feeling the weight of Min-jun's protection. Outside, the city remained restless, full of shadows and whispers. Inside, I felt a fragile sense of safety, temporary, conditional, but real. And I knew that tomorrow, and the day after, the danger would return. But so would Min-jun. And for now that was enough. The morning air carried a crisp chill, but inside my apartment, the tension was suffocating. I could feel Sung-ho's eyes on every corner, every shadow. He had insisted on staying until Min-jun's next move was clear. "Today they come prepared," Sung-ho said quietly, scanning the street below. "We cannot falter. Remember everything I taught you." I nodded, though my hands shook. Maya tugged at my sleeve, sensing the unease. I knelt to meet her eyes. "Stay close," I whispered. "Nothing will reach us if we stay together." Hours passed in silence, punctuated only by the occasional distant hum of a car or a shouted word from a nearby street. Then came the message. A text from Min-jun. Just 3 words. "Prepare for arrival." Sung-ho's posture stiffened. He moved to the window, peering down like a sentinel. Minutes later, a convoy appeared. 3 black vehicles moving slowly, almost ceremoniously, down the street. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. "They are testing your reactions," Min-jun's voice came through Sung-ho's phone. "Do not panic. Follow instructions exactly." The first vehicle stopped at the curb. The doors opened, but no one emerged. Instead, a small drone hovered into the air, scanning. Froze. Maya clung to me, her small face tense but trusting. "Do nothing," Sung-ho reminded me. "Let Min-jun act." Minutes later, the drone retracted, and the vehicles drove off. It was a warning, one I understood immediately. Someone powerful was watching, assessing, probing for weaknesses. By late afternoon, Min-jun arrived in person. He did not knock. He did not announce himself. One moment he was absent, and the next, he was standing in the living room, calm, commanding, almost untouchable. "They are organized," he said, surveying the apartment. "But disorganized in thought. That is their mistake." He handed me a sleek tablet. On the screen were live feeds from nearby streets, showing movements, faces, license plates. Each frame was annotated with Min-jun's sharp analysis. "This," he said, "is how power works. Knowledge before action. Anticipation before reaction. You survive by seeing what they cannot." I realized then how different this world was. In the shadows of a city that thrived on fear, Min-jun's control was absolute yet invisible. Every step he took, every glance he gave, was measured, deliberate, unstoppable. Night fell, and the city hummed with the same restless energy. But inside I felt a strange clarity. Danger was coming, yes, but we were ready. For the first time since this nightmare began, I believed survival was not just a hope, it was a plan. And somewhere in the depths of that plan, Min-jun's silent power promised protection, strategy, and retribution for those who dared to threaten the life of a single mother and her child. The night was thick with rain, each drop slapping against the windows like a drumbeat of warning. I watched from the living room as Min-jun paced silently, his gaze fixed on the streets below. The city felt alive, dangerous in ways I had never imagined, and every shadow seemed to hide someone waiting to strike. Sung-ho stood beside me, his posture tense, ready to act at a moment's notice. "They'll try tonight," he said, voice low. "They've been waiting for a sign, and now we've given it." Maya stirred from her nap, rubbing her eyes. I held her close, whispering reassurances I didn't fully believe myself. "It's okay. We're safe here. He's watching." Min-jun finally stopped pacing and turned to us, his expression unreadable. "Tonight is not about fear," he said. "It's about understanding the rules of survival. Those who underestimate you fall first." There was a sudden sound, tires on wet pavement. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, moving deliberately, cautiously. I could see the glint of weapons, the heavy weight of intent. Min-jun didn't flinch. He lifted a hand slightly, signaling Sung-ho to stay back. The intruders paused at the doorway, scanning, unaware that every move was being monitored. Without a word, Min-jun stepped forward. The room seemed to shrink around him, the air charged with authority. "You came looking for trouble," he said quietly, almost conversationally. "But trouble isn't always where you expect it." One of the intruders hesitated, then tried to raise his weapon. In an instant, Min-jun moved, not quickly but decisively. Within seconds, the man was disarmed, pinned to the floor, completely outmatched. The other 2 froze, their confidence draining as they realized the error in judgment. "This," Min-jun said, his voice calm, "is why you never underestimate power that is unseen. The moment you assume fear is weakness, you lose everything." Sung-ho and I watched, stunned, as Min-jun released the man but left a mark, a warning that would make the others think twice before returning. They fled into the rainy night, defeated without a single shot fired. Maya hugged my leg tightly, whispering, He's like a superhero, right?" I knelt down, holding her close. "Not a superhero," I said, voice firm. "But someone who understands the world better than anyone else. And that makes all the difference." The rain continued to fall outside, but inside there was a quiet victory. The first test had passed, and for the first time I felt that maybe we could survive this, maybe even thrive, under Min-jun's shadowed protection. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The enemies we faced were ruthless, patient, and relentless. And in the world Min-jun ruled, nothing stayed hidden for long.